Welcome to this deep dive. We're going to be looking at a subject that I know you're interested in, and that is the significance of water, not just scientifically, but philosophically too. And we've got some really interesting sources to kind of dig into, including an imagined interview with a prominent historical figure.
Yeah, this is going to be quite a journey.
It is.
Yeah.
To set the stage, we're going to travel back to ancient Greece. You see, the ancient Greeks were fascinated by this idea of an arche. It's the fundamental principle of reality, the source of everything. And one philosopher, Thales of Miletus, believed that arche was water.
Thales was one of the earliest Greek philosophers,
Uh,
and his ideas about water were really revolutionary for his time.
yeah, it's amazing to think about how, without all the tools of modern science, he arrived at these conclusions. Just observing the world around him and seeing that water seemed to be everywhere, from rivers and seas to rain and mist.
Exactly, and recognizing that it was essential for all life, for plants, animals, human civilization.
Yeah.
And even seeing how water could transform and change states like from liquid to vapor and back again.
So he was already thinking about concepts that we now understand as the water cycle, right?
Precisely.
Yeah.
Thales observed that water could evaporate, form clouds, and then return to the earth as rain nourishing the land. He didn't have the scientific vocabulary to describe it the way we do now, but his observations were incredibly astute.
Yeah. So let's unpack this concept of arche a little bit more. What are the deeper implications of Thales's idea that water is this fundamental principle of reality?
Well, on one level, I think it reflects a deep appreciation for the interconnectedness of all things. Thales saw that water was constantly changing, flowing, connecting different parts of the world. And he understood that this constant flux was essential for life to exist.
Right, and that's really profound, especially considering the time period that he was living in. But how does this connect to our modern scientific understanding? I mean, we know that water is made up of hydrogen and oxygen atoms. Does that invalidate Thales' idea?
Not necessarily. You see, while we've certainly advanced in our understanding of the chemical composition of water, Thales was searching for something more fundamental, like a unifying principle that could explain the diversity and interconnectedness of the universe.
So even though we've moved beyond the idea of water as the literal building block of everything, that search for that unifying principle continues in modern science.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Think about modern physics and the quest for a theory of everything, a single framework that could explain all the forces and particles in the universe. It's like a modern-day echo of Thales' search for the arch.
Wow, I see the connection now. It's fascinating how these ancient philosophical ideas can still resonate with our scientific pursuits today.
Absolutely. And, when we think about the modern challenges that we face, like climate change and water scarcity, Thales' focus on the vital role of water takes on even greater significance. It's
Yeah, and that's what we're going to dig into next time, so
Yeah.
stay tuned.
Yeah, his ideas become even more compelling, I think, when we consider this imagined interview between Thales and a modern hydrologist, Robert Elmer Horton. It's a fictional dialogue, but it really helps us explore how these two thinkers might have interacted across time.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. What stood out to you as you read through it?
Well, Horton begins by asking Thales about his belief that water is the fundamental principle of reality. And Thales' response is so beautifully simple and grounded in observation. He talks about seeing water everywhere, nourishing life, shaping the landscape. It highlights the power of direct engagement with the natural world.
So how does the interview bridge the gap between, ancient philosophy and modern science?
Well, Horton introduces the modern concept of the water cycle. Evaporation, condensation, precipitation. Essentially laying out a scientific framework that Thales didn't have access to.
Right. I'm curious to know how Thales reacts to that. It must have been mind-blowing for him to hear about these intricate processes happening on a global scale.
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But Thales doesn't express disbelief or resistance. Instead, he embraces this new knowledge and suggests that if he had access to modern tools, it would only further support his view of water as the arche.
He sounds like a true scientist at heart, open to new evidence, willing to adapt his thinking.
Exactly. But the conversation takes a turn towards the challenges of water management. Horton brings up floods and droughts issues that we still grapple with today.
Right, and this is where the interview gets really relevant to our modern world. What does Thales have to say about these issues?
Well, he acknowledges the destructive power of water, reminding us that we are ultimately dependent on this element, and we must respect its power. He suggests that with modern understanding, we could learn to see these events as part of a natural balance. That requires wisdom and careful management.
It's a perspective that we often lose sight of. We try to control and dominate nature instead of working in harmony with it.
And that brings us to, I think, a pivotal moment in the interview. Horton reveals that water isn't an indivisible element, but is actually composed of hydrogen and oxygen atoms. This is a major scientific revelation that could easily challenge Thales' entire worldview.
So how does Thales respond to this seemingly contradictory information?
His response is incredibly insightful. He suggests that perhaps his concept of water as the arche was more symbolic than literal, representing the fundamental interconnectedness of all things. It shows his remarkable ability to adapt and find deeper meaning in new discoveries.
It's almost like he's saying that even though our understanding of the physical world evolves, that underlying principle of interconnectedness remains valid.
Precisely. And this leads to what I think is the most powerful moment in the interview. Horton asks Thales if he has any advice for modern scientists, and his response sends chills down my spine. He says, "Science must always serve life, not dominate it."
Wow, that's such a poignant message, especially in today's world where technological advancements can sometimes feel overwhelming. What else does he say?
He has this beautiful thought. When you discover new aspects of the natural world, don't forget to step back and contemplate the unity that binds us to everything around us. It's a reminder that our scientific pursuits should not be divorced from ethical considerations and a sense of wonder.
It sounds like Thales is urging us to approach science with humility and a deep respect for the interconnectedness of all things. So we've delved into Thales' ideas, we've explored this fascinating interview, and touched on some very relevant modern issues. What does all of this mean for you, the listener? I mean, it really makes you think about our own relationship with water, doesn't it?
It does.
We've come a long way since Thales' time, but his insights still feel so relevant. Yeah, we've unlocked so many scientific secrets about water, yet we also face these immense challenges, right? Pollution, scarcity, climate change, all tied to our relationship with this, essential element.
And as we grapple with these issues, Thales' call for science to serve life kind of echoes in the background.
It does.
Yeah.
He reminds us that our knowledge should be used to enhance life, not control it or exploit it.
I think if Thales were alive today, he would urge us to find that balance, to use our scientific understanding to manage water sustainably and ensure its availability for all forms of life.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, it feels like we're left with a sense of responsibility. Thales' legacy isn't just about philosophical or scientific ideas, it's about action.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's about asking ourselves, how can we honor his vision? How can we use our knowledge to protect and preserve water for future generations?
Those are powerful questions to ponder. We've covered a lot of ground today, from ancient Greece to modern science, and I think it's safe to say that water is more than just a molecule. It's a source of life, a symbol of interconnectedness, and a challenge that calls for our wisdom and action.
So to you listening, we'll leave you with this final thought. What would Thales think of our relationship with water today? And more importantly, what can we do to ensure that our actions reflect his timeless wisdom? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. And until next time, keep exploring a